Friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashley Aireonna, and I'm so excited to be talking to you guys today. If I'm starting this a little flustered, I am brought to you live, coming from Arizona, following an embarrassing 49ers season and an embarrassing 49ers football game. Also an embarrassing night for me because if I'm starting a little late, it's because someone tried to steal my phone just now at the little sports bar that I was watching the game at. So that was off-putting, but I otherwise have loved Arizona. I've liked the heat and everything else except for that. But I'm excited to get into the 49ers content. Just bringing in the new year right. So thankful for my dad, who I did call. How funny is it that no matter how old you get, I'm about ready to have my birthday on January 8th. And no matter how old I get, when something goes wrong, I want to call my dad. I feel like, if you have good parents, you know what I mean. You love to uh, turn to them in moments of like panic. But everything's all good. I have my phone here. These are the 49ers stats that I'm going to be reading off. And we're going to talk about a football game. End of the 49ers season. And the game was a fitting end. I didn't anticipate this. I didn't think that the 49ers were going to be demolished by the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals suck. They are also not making the playoffs. They are also doing bad. So the fact that the 49ers lost 24-47 is a complete embarrassment. And Nick Bosa basically said it's hard for him to even talk to the team, to talk to the young guys, to give, some inspiring speech when they, on both sides of the ball just put up that performance, but especially on defense. If you look at the game since the Rams game, which obviously was the game that mattered most for the 49ers, following that, they played the Dolphins and the defense gave up 29, so almost 30. And then last week against the Lions, they give up 40 points in, a embarrassing effort and that game was more embarrassing because it felt competitive and then it was a collapse, like a fourth quarter collapse, which is so what the 49ers have been under Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy and this defense, Nick Sorensen, all season. But going to this game, you have a new quarterback, tons of people are out, but on both sides of the team, like Cardinals were also missing a ton of starters. And I was kind of thinking that both teams would, it'd be a low scoring game. I didn't really know if the 49ers would lose or win, but I thought it'd be pretty close, maybe like 21-24 loss. Both teams don't show a ton of fight. They just try to get out of here preseason style. And for the most part, Josh Dobbs, I mean, the thing that sucks about him is at one point I was like, he's kind of balling out. His stats were 29 for 43, but going into halftime, they were 25 of 33. So it was much better going into halftime. The first half, story of the 49ers season, playing way better the first half than the second half. He threw for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns. I was excited. Like we saw Ricky Pearsall getting involved, although even that kind of pissed me off because I mean, how many games do you think the 49ers would have won? How many more games would the 49ers won if instead of force feeding Deebo Samuel the ball, they were actually spreading the ball around to Ricky Pearsall? I mean, obviously Jauan Jennings and George Kittle have balled out this year, so continuing to get them targets. But it's really disappointing that I mean, I feel like for the most part, Ricky's breakout game was last week, and then he followed it up this week again with a great game. For you guys who don't know, he is from Arizona, so he had lots of family in the stadium cheering for him today. But with Deebo out, the 49ers offense has looked better. I mean, the 49ers didn't lose this game, in my opinion, because of offense. I guess going into the fourth quarter, you could blame offense with the turnovers. Like, you just can't win a game when you're constantly losing the turnover battle. And that was my issue with Josh Dobbs. So, like, the first 3 quarters, and this has been the same thing with Brock Purdy, right? Like, the first 3 quarters, you're like, okay, they're actually putting up some fight. They're doing well. Like, they're protecting the football. He was like dicing it up. He was running, utilizing his legs. I have no idea. Or maybe maybe now I have an idea. But going into the third quarter, I was like, or fourth quarter, up until then, I was like, I have no idea why Brandon Allen started earlier in a must-win game. Like the 49ers were still in contention at that point when Brandon Allen started, when Brock Purdy missed that game earlier this season because of his shoulder. Um, Josh Dobbs to me is like more accurate. He's more decisive, has just as good of an arm, like strength wise, if not better. And then he has the mobility aspect, which really came into play with the beat up offensive line today. And so I was like excited. And then fucking fourth quarter happens and it's just a complete collapse. He fumbles the football, then he turns over the football. I thought he was going to turn over the football like 3 more times, by the way, after that last turnover that he had in that fourth quarter. I think the 49ers got the ball back twice after that. Each time he was like trying to throw a turnover. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Um, he said earlier this week, how much he's learned from Brock Purdy when it comes to being poised and how much Brock Purdy's helped him with the system and everything. And I kind of made a joke with my dad who I was messaging during the game. And I was like, that's the one thing you don't want to learn from Brock Purdy. Because this season, Brock Purdy has turned the ball over 14 times in the second half and only scored 3 touchdowns. If you look at his first half stats, he scored much more. I think he has 3 turnovers and like 12 touchdowns. So he's, scoring multiple touchdowns in the first half. But the most important quarters, in my opinion, are the third and fourth quarters, especially, we know with Kyle Shanahan, when they get the ball back in that third quarter, when they win the coin toss, they love to be able to score again, right coming out of halftime, set a standard. And then fourth quarter, in my opinion, that's the most, like in football, that is the most important quarter. If you're winning, you need to run the ball, you need to control it, you need to protect the football and just close out the game. If you're losing, you got to start throwing, you got to start making good, bigger plays, go up to like a hurry up offense. And that's just where the 49ers crumble. Josh Dobbs, Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, fourth down decisions, protecting the football doesn't happen. The story of the game is what this loss is indicative of all of the 49ers losses this year. I think I have it written down. Do I have the penalties written down? It was turnovers, 49ers losing the turnover battle. Fred Warner and George Kittle both talked about this. George Kittle talked about it offensively. They're turning the ball over. Fred Warner talked about it defensively. That 49ers defense is not getting turnovers. And they've been given opportunities. Think about last week against the Lions. It's midstream, and my dad just texted me a beautiful picture of dinner. Love you, Dad, but I'm streaming. Don't make me hungry. But let me look at the turnovers. I have 0 to 2 turnovers. Niners have littered with penalties. Yes. Okay. So at the end of the game, I wanted to get the exact stats because I had the halftime ones. But the very end, 49ers had 13 penalties for 85 yards, meaning they gave the Cardinals defense, meaning they gave the Cardinals offense 85 yards that they didn't earn. That's an entire football field times 2. They walked down the football field, were able to score on those drives. To me, that's a coaching and a leadership issue. Like if you're coaching it, if you're not coaching it, you're allowing it. That's saying, I don't know. Like this is a veteran team. Penalties should not be a struggle. I feel like the Packers were a younger, up and coming team that had a lot of like angst and spite, and they were trying to like make every good, they're playing through the whistle, all that. You could kind of justify there being more penalties in that way because you're like, okay, they're not settled into the NFL yet, and they're just trying to come out hard. But with this 49ers team, it's like they're one of the oldest teams in the league. What do you mean you're committing false starts, you're not lining up correctly on defense, you're committing offsides penalties, you're not getting the play in before the whistle is called, you're holding, like taking away good plays. Early on, they had a really great play with Ricky Pearsall that got taken away because of a penalty, and it's like they were right in the red zone, and then they're crushing themselves, which literally goes back to like week 2. I feel like against the Vikings in Minnesota week 2, I said that I was like, wow, they got into the red zone and then they just kept beating themselves. This is ridiculous. And all the other team had to do was score and not turn the ball over and they could win. that's been the story of the 49ers season. Luckily, they, up until the fourth quarter, they had protected the football, so they were kind of in it, going back and forth all game. Like when you see that final score with the Cardinals having 47, you think, oh my God, this was a blowout the whole time. But much like the Lions game was actually very competitive all the way up until the end. When the gotta have it quarter, you melt down. To me, that's on coaching. Like, how do you not know this is when you need to play the most disciplined? This is when you need to make the best decisions. If you know that your quarterback is turnover prone, maybe instead of airing it out when you're winning, you need to be more conservative in running the ball. And I know people are going to say, because Issac Guerendo, I'll get into injuries, Issac Guerendo went down right away in this game. And part of the 49ers season, like I said, I'm being really hard on them. It's been penalties, it's been red zone woes, it's been fourth quarter collapses, but it also has been injuries. I don't want to like completely dismiss injuries, have definitely derailed them. I think the reason I get mad when people put so much emphasis on it being injuries is the 49ers have been lucky with their depth. Like their backups have came in and played well. Christian McCaffrey didn't start the season, but they had Jordan Mason, who was playing better than Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Ayuk was out, but look at Ricky Pearsall. Like if they were utilizing him more, I think he could have put up the same numbers that Brandon Ayuk put up last year. And I'm not trying to say they're comparable, but in this offense, if you're scheming someone open, I mean, he's scored touchdowns in every game he's been targeted. So to me, I'm blaming the fact that he went an entire month sitting on the bench when he was totally healthy, and he literally just didn't get a target. And Deebo Samuel was getting targeted 13, 18 times in one game for like an entire month when the season was on the line. Now that the season's over, you're targeting Ricky Pearsall, and he scored a touchdown every time. So, anyways, Josh Dobbs fumbles the football. He turns over the football, tries to turn it over like 3 more times. I think, although I think Josh Dobbs is a better backup than Brandon Allen, and if they wanted to bring him in as like a third string quarterback next year, I'd be fine with it if he wants to compete for a backup. I think that they need, if they're going to be keeping Brock Purdy long term, whether or not now that the season's over, they're going to, announce a contract extension soon, or they're just going to make him play out on his final year of his contract, which is what I would do, but I'm not certain that they're going to do that. But I think that they need to bring a better backup than Josh Dobbs in. I want a backup who's able to compete with Brock Purdy, which some people might say Josh Dobbs can compete with Brock Purdy. I mean, he put up more points today than Brock Purdy has in the last multiple games. He had, he turned over the ball, but Brock Purdy is in the most important games has turned over the ball in the fourth quarter. So he didn't do much worse. Actually, some would maybe say he did better, took less sacks, but I don't know, maybe that's the Cardinals defense sucking. But I'm trying to be generous. So I'm going to say Brock Purdy is better than Josh Dobbs. I want to bring in a Gardner Minshew, a Daniel Jones. I think Sam Darnold's probably outpriced himself, but like, I would love it if they took a chance on a guy like that who could actually put pressure on Brock Purdy during training camp. And I'm not saying give this other guy the job, but like actually have a competition, let them compete. Last year, apparently Sam Darnold, who's, balling out now, a lot of people, I know Matt Mayoko said he was the best throw over the football that he's ever seen. By the way, I'm not watching the game right now. Maybe Sam Darnold's shitting his pants against the Lions game. Are they? Someone in the comments tell me how they're doing. So maybe he's doing bad, but I think they need to bring in a backup who's going to put pressure on Brock Purdy. I think they should not extend Brock Purdy until next year when his contract is actually due. I mean, if they wanted to, they could have him for 3 more years. He has 1 year, like, because some people are confused. I've gotten comments about this, so I want to explain. They don't have to franchise tag him this year. It's not like they're going to be, there's going to be strife. They're going to make him mad if they don't pay him. Like, this is his contract still. It's not until the year following that then they could franchise tag him twice. So they could technically have him for very cheap for 3 more years. I don't think they'll do that. And I don't even know if I would recommend that. I think a lot of players are very anti-franchise tag. I know that Kirk Cousins has gone on multiple podcasts and talked about how when Washington franchised him, he knew as soon as he was going to be a free agent that he was leaving because it really cause some like disgruntlement. So I'm not advocating for that, but like give him one more year. We've seen 1 year where he looked like a star, but the offense was firing on all cylinders. They had the best, most talented team in the NFL. They had a highly ranked defense. They got to the Super Bowl. They had the offensive player of the year. Brock Purdy was in the MVP conversation, but in my opinion, it should have been Christian McCaffrey. So he had a great year. Then this year, they have personal tragedy, they have injuries, all those are excuses, but also they had kind of a coaching meltdown, they had a leadership meltdown. They did have a lot of guys who could have performed, who didn't step up to the plate, and Brock Purdy wasn't able to elevate the team. And to me, when you're paying top money, you need a guy who elevates the team. Think about Josh Allen and the teams that Josh Allen has been on. Josh Allen played the first like 5 years of his career with like no running back and like no wide receiver. I think like just recently they kind of got a run game. Like Josh Allen was the Bills' leading running back or leading rusher for like the first 4 years of his career. And then Kevin O'Connell, who's the Vikings who's the Vikings head coach, he did say something where he said like organization or quarterbacks don't fail organizations fail quarterbacks. And I do kind of agree with that too. Like this wasn't the best system for Brock Purdy to thrive this year. So I think that major changes need to be made this offseason. And we're going to talk about that, all through the coming months. And I think you don't extend Brock Purdy. You don't give Kyle all the job security in the world. And you say, okay, let's do it one more time. You made the NFC Championship game, then you missed the playoffs completely. By the way, under Kyle, that's his job. I have it pictured. He either goes to the NFC Championship game or Super Bowl or straight up loses so badly that he misses the playoffs. He's 4-4. So he has 4 years where he's either made a Super Bowl or made an NFC Championship game. But Kyle also has 4 years, which is a lot of years, where he's completely missed the playoffs altogether. So I think you really got to think about firing Nick Sorensen. I know a couple of weeks ago, Kyle Shanahan gave Nick Sorensen like a vote of confidence, but 28 points, 40 points is crazy. 40 points, 47. And like a lot of people with the Lions, they were like, well, the Lions, they're the number one offense. They've been doing this to all sorts of teams. Okay, I'll give you that. Ben Johnson, hell of a play caller. I would say that kind of makes me rethink Kyle if we're saying, oh, well, like, you can't expect defenses to stop Ben Johnson. It's like, okay, well, you can expect them to stop Kyle. But anyways, that's getting on a tangent. The defense has given up 29 and then 40. And then against a bad team, a bad offense that has not been high scoring all year, was tons of injuries, just like the 49ers. They gave up 47. They didn't show fight. And to me, that's when you kind of think like, okay, is the coaching no longer resonating with these players? Because just off of like will, you would think that you could prevent that many touchdowns. I mean, that final touchdown was laughable. The one that happened at the very end of the game. The second one that happened, my dad was like sending me laughing face and he was like, holy shit, I can't believe they're melting down like this. And I was like, okay, it's over. Josh Dobbs throws the interception. I'm like, it's over. I thought that would be the final score. Then the defense completely checks out. Like they just wanted the game to be over. It's like, okay, just forfeit. Don't go out there. Don't make fun of Devondre Campbell for leaving the game in the middle of the game if you're going to go in the game but not play. Like it was a complete lapse of caring. And by that time, they had taken multiple players out. I know they left Leonard Floyd in. He was trying to tie up, I think if he had one more sack, he was going to tie with Mason Garrett for like the most touchdowns in the last 5 years, most sacks in the last 5 years. Unfortunately, he didn't get that because the 49ers defense couldn't get any pressure on Kyler Murray. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop any wide receivers. I mean, they played this team earlier on in the year and they showed more fight. Like the score was not this embarrassing. So, speaking of Nick Sorensen and whether or not you think that maybe, although Kyle a couple weeks ago said he was fine, but then since then he's played way worse, or he's coached way worse. Both Fred Warner and Nick Bosa were asked about Nick Sorensen, and let me see what was. Oh, by the way, guys who will be available before I get into the comments from the players, guys who will be available: Robert Saleh. I don't know if Robert Saleh wants to come back. Robert Saleh has been off all year, and he's been helping Green Bay. He's really good friends with Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. They were in each other's weddings. And it's been said from former assistant coaches of Kyle that he's very intense. He has security cameras in every single room. He's very strict. If you want to propose an idea, you have to like make your case. And although maybe that's positive because a lot of his guys has gone on to get head coaching jobs, so I think it helps really prepare you. I think it's a lot of surveillance coming from some guy who was just a head coach. He might not want to relinquish so much power. And if Robert Saleh can have more of a, like, it feels like Matt LaFleur might give Robert Saleh just full control of the defense because he's just going to focus on the offense. And I think if you're with the 49ers, Kyle still will kind of he still takes over even defensively. So I don't know if Robert Saleh will want to come back, but he is available. So Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, he was the good assistant coach for the Jets, and then he ended up taking over as head coach. Now, I don't think he did great as head coach, but also the Jets just suck in general. And he was in the interviews last year for the defensive job, and the 49ers really, really wanted him, but he actually stayed with the Jets. Now he's moving on from the Jets, so just Jeff Ulbrich could be a guy to watch. Matt Eberflus, some people were talking about. I'm confused. Like, he was obviously a horrible head coach with Chicago, but if you look at the Bears and how they performed defensively when Matt Eberflus was the head coach, and then how they performed the latter half of the season since firing him, their defense has kind of collapsed. So maybe he's a horrible head coach, but whatever he was doing on defense, I mean, the Bears were performing much better. He was obviously inspiring them, but two, coaching up something for them to do well. I mean, I thought that the Bears were going to put up much more of a fight when the 49ers were going into that game. And it was the first game after firing Matt Eberflus, and their defense was just disastrous. So they're definitely missing him. Like I said, when I first heard his name, I was like, oh, that guy sucks. But I was like, well, some guys just aren't meant to be head coaches. Like, he could suck as a head coach, but still be a great defensive coordinator. So I would definitely at least give him an interview. Dennis Allen is also going to be a top defensive assistant that's going to be available. So people might be looking at them. Someone said Vikings will choke in the playoffs. Lions are winning 10-9. Oh, low scoring. What the heck? I thought that low scoring. Why is it that low scoring? Everyone told me that, oh, defenses can't stop the Lions. It's not the 49ers defense's fault that the Lions scored 40. Apparently the Vikings defense can stop them. So this is just more ammo, in my opinion, that I would really think about bringing Nick Sorensen back. And I would really question it. And this is coming from, if you guys have been watching my channel, like, I never want to be like just a hater or like dishonest. A couple weeks ago, when Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga both were back for that like half a game, they actually performed pretty well. And I was like, oh, well, I know that I've been saying injuries aren't a complete excuse, but the defense really has struggled with injury. Maybe we give him one more year of a chance because he looked a lot better. But that was for one half of football. And then they lost it at the end of that game as well. And I know Dre Greenlaw went out, but like, your defense can't rely on one guy. The Lions right now, who are apparently winning, they are out 15 players on defense. They're out their entire defensive starting line, multiple safeties. Like, the Lions are decimated on defense, and they're still, I mean, I'm not saying they're great. Like, I think obviously the 49ers were able to score on them. So I don't think they're the best defense, but I'm just saying, like, you can't completely write off someone's performance because of injury. And like I said, the last touchdown that happened today for the 49ers and Cardinals showed me that the players tuned Nick Sorensen out. And that's kind of where, like, they checked out. They're ready for Cabo. They're ready for their offseason. And to me, like, you can't bring a guy back if he's not inspiring you to play no matter what. Like, there needs to be, we are the 49ers. We have a standard. And like, especially under Kyle, like my view of the 49ers up until this year is like a strong, tough, physical, all out defense. Like even more so than offense. Under Kyle Shanahan, I've always thought like run game and hard-nosed defensive football. And they're just like not that anymore. And it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to bring this guy back. I want to, it's not that I want to go back because I understand that you always need to be evolving, but like I want inspired defense back. I want guys who want to hit. I want guys who want to play every down. I want guys who want to get after the quarterback, who want to, prevent the catch, who want to get the turnover. And right now they're just not. If anything, I know, some people have asked, like, what is Brandon Staley even doing? Because he's obviously here too. I have no idea what he's doing. I do know that he took over the ball meetings, which Nick Sorensen was hosting last year. So the ball meetings are all about teaching the defense how to take away the ball. So he needs to be fired. Brandon Staley fucking sucked when he coached the Cardinals. He gave up a huge lead. His defense sucked there. He's been here for 1 year, and the 49ers have not gotten takeaways since he's taken over the job of teaching how to get takeaways. So either A, I mean, you 100% you have to fire him. Like, I don't know exactly what he does aside from that. I'm sure there's more he does. But the defense has sucked. So if you're not going to fire Nick Sorensen, you at least have to get rid of Brandon Staley because he's brought nothing to this team. And I would personally really look into if you can get a Robert Saleh, if you can get a Jeff Ulbrich, not even firing Nick Sorensen, but just demoting him. Like have him go back to being the guy who was presenting the ball meetings. Like the 49ers took away the ball last year when that was Nick Sorensen's job. Maybe like taking over the entire defense is a little bit, over his head. But I'm not saying you have to like get him out of the 49ers facility. I'm just saying like he clearly needs some help on defense. And also, I mean, obviously they have to get him more talent. They have to heal up. Health is a factor. I'm not trying to totally take that over or, let that go. I'm projecting that their first round pick, which by the way, they secured the 11th round draft pick, which is great. It's really good that the 49ers have a really high draft pick. With that, I mean, last year they had a first round pick, but they chose Ricky Pearsall, who, no offense, even though he's done well, he was slated as a second round pick, but they were drafting too high, so no one wanted to trade with them. No one wanted to trade back with them. They were in a situation that sucked. Now, I think that they should have gone Cooper DeJean, who was there, but it's good that the 49ers have a high draft pick. I'm thinking that they're going to go defensive line. I hope that they go offensive line, but really they need help at both. They need a guy on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Also, they need Nick Bosa to be Nick Bosa again. I'm not trying to say he's performed badly, and also he's been, injured. I think just recently he said he was finally healing up the last couple of weeks, but he struggled a lot with that hip oblique injury this year, or at least the later half of this year. But he's not the defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa, that he was when he got his contract, and they need help on that D-line. Like, they're just not getting sacks. A great way to, have a successful run, unfortunately, is to literally run at Nick Bosa because he's usually going all out for the quarterback, and he, can't stop to prevent the runner. And a lot of defenses have been exposing Nick Bosa in that way with the run. Speaking of the Cardinals, that's what they did last time the 49ers played them. The very first play that Kyler Murray scored on, he was actually asked about it after the game because Brady was calling the game, and Brady had a segment where he was talking about big plays, and he asked Kyler Murray, because the Cardinals won, how did you know you were going to score on that? And he basically said, on film, it shows that if you run at Nick Bosa, he's so eager to get to the quarterback that he doesn't have a second of a pause. And it's not that you need to pause for too long, because obviously if it's not a run, you need to get to the quarterback, but you can't be completely weak where defenses just know that they can run on you. And even without his pause, no offense to Nick Bosa, you're not getting that many sacks right now. So whatever you're doing, it's not working. I'm not trying to be too down on him. Like I said, he's injured, and I think he's one of the best players on defense. We saw him go out, and the rest of the defense cannot hold up the level that it does when he's in there. But the 49ers are going to need to draft a defensive lineman to add to that defensive line. A lot of those guys are aging veterans who they're going to move on from anyways, just because they're on one-year deals. But even if they bring back some guys, I don't think that the guys they have are enough. Hi. Someone said, Will Roberts says also a young linebacker as well. My thing is like D Winters was playing really great. He really struggled with injury. He had like a neck injury and a back injury. He was out this game with an injury. But when he's gotten on the field, he's played pretty well when it comes to linebacker. And I do think that they'll bring Dre Greenlaw back. Unfortunately, because Greenlaw has gotten injured, I think he'll take like a 1-year cheaper deal. So I think that he'll be back with the 49ers on defense. And then obviously you have Fred Warner. When you're talking about linebackers, you have Fred Warner, who hopefully doesn't need surgery on that foot, and hopefully the bone will heal up. So because I started this off talking about what the players said about Nick Sorensen when they were asked about it. And I will read you their quotes right now. I have lots of quotes from Diamond Lenore, who was not happy about getting ejected as well. But Nick Bosa called the end of the season an embarrassment. He said it's hard to look guys in their faces as a leader on that team and say that's the product that we keep putting out. SF's defense has been gashed for 3 straight games for 116 points to close out the season. When asked really quickly, let me see, why is it not readily available? My thing is I try to save too many things and then I lose it. I have lots of stuff about the penalties as well. Did I not save that? Annoying. Okay. Well, I'll summarize it for you, but don't take my direct quote then. Nick Bosa basically said that because he was asked like about Nick Sorensen's performance, and he said, I'm not the one in charge, so I can't make any decisions on if he should come back or not. But I know that we did not put our best effort out there for him. So not a vote of confidence. Like he's not saying, I definitely want this guy back. If it was up to me, I want this guy back. We've heard Nick Bosa make comments like that before. So it's not, he was kind of skirting it by being like, well, that's not my call. But he also wasn't totally blaming him. Like he did take accountability and say the player execution wasn't there. Which when you go back to what he said about Steve Wilks, who, by the way, Steve Wilks is somewhere laughing because holy shit, he did way more with this defense than Nick Sorensen did and got fired. But for whatever reason, Nick Bosa didn't like him, and Nick Bosa would go out in the media and literally like blame play calling. So he's not necessarily doing what he did with Nick Soren or with Steve Wilks, where it felt like he was like, I want this guy fired, and then the 49ers fire him. He's not doing that with Nick Sorensen, but he's also not like definitely bring him back. He's kind of hitting the middle. And Fred Warner did something similar. I really want to find the exact quote, so give me 1 second because I know Rob quote tweeted it. So I'll do that. Second captain to decline to endorse. Okay. Nick Sorensen said Nick Bosa said we didn't do Nick Sorensen any favors. And Fred Warner said that we should put it back on the players when we're discussing this defensive performance. It comes to us when the ball gets in our hands, we have to catch it. Kind of more talking about turnovers. So Fred Warner also didn't, say definitely bring him back, declined to necessarily endorse him, but I like that they weren't like shoving responsibility and being like, it's all on the coach. They definitely were like, as players, we did not fulfill our obligation as well. Now, do they feel like they were put in the best position to do so? I would say no. Something that I wrote down going into halftime was how maddening the off coverage the off coverage play was. Soft zone coverage absolutely killed the 49ers against the Lions. I have no idea why they started playing it. By the way, not only were they letting them walk down the field, which I hate when they do that anyways, like any team when you're leading and then all of a sudden you start giving the other team 5 yards, I'm like, well, now they're going to get in the red zone and they have a better, like, just play man-to-man right now. Especially the guys that the 49ers drafted are guys who excel in man-to-man. Like in college, they played man-to-man coverage, not zone coverage. But anyways, Nick Sorensen, he's a soft zone coverage guy. But not only were they doing that, like all the way getting down to the field, but then last week against the Lions, they were playing soft zone coverage in the end zone. So like a guy, like if the end zone is here, like this is the start of the end zone, and then the rest, sorry, it's backwards. All of this is the back of the end zone. There was like a Lions wide receiver here, and our defender was all the way over here, like behind him. How are you going to stop the catch when this guy just has to run 1 foot back into the end zone and you have to run 7 to tackle him out of the end zone? Don't do that. And they continue to play soft zone coverage this week. So Nick Sorensen last week, he was asked about his performance against the Lions, and he said, we learned a lot and that we're going to learn a lot against the Cardinals as well. Well, I would argue, Nick Sorensen, you're not learning from your mistakes. My thing is like, if the defense sucked, but they sucked in different ways each week, you could say, okay, at least they're adjusting. But they're not adjusting. Like, how can you say you learned from the Lions game when your number one downfall, like the reason that the defense collapsed in the fourth quarter was soft zone coverage? Like you literally allowed Amon St. Brown, I can never say his name, St. Brown, you allowed him to take one step back into the end zone without any defenders around him. And you said, this is a learning experience and we're going to learn more against the Cardinals. And then you play the Cardinals game and you play that exact same defense. If they played man today and they got defeated, I'd be like, okay, at least they adjusted. It just didn't work. But like, at least they learned from what they did last week. They tried something new. But you can't just keep doing the same shit over and over again and wondering, oh, why do they keep scoring on us? Because you're letting them walk into the end zone. Trey McBride is probably the best offensive player on the Cardinals offense right now. The announcers were even saying it. And he was wide open multiple times. Wide open. No guys around him for multiple, like first down after first down, getting the ball easy. Sorry. I got heated there for a second. But anyways, I think that they should definitely look at Nick Sorensen and look at the other candidates that they have around. I'm not 100% saying they should fire him, but they need to be open to conducting interviews. Someone says, if Kyle does fire Nick Sorensen and Staley, he needs to allow whatever defensive coordinator he hires to run their style of defense. Go away from the wide nine and allow the coach to run their defense. Kyle has a whole lot to say when it comes to defense, and he needs to bring in a veteran defensive coordinator that runs his defense, not Kyle's. Kyle needs to trust, he needs to give away control and trust the defensive coordinator. I agree with that. How am I blanking right now? The guy who's the defensive coordinator for the Eagles last year was the defensive coordinator for Miami. Anyways, they didn't want him to come in last year. They had the opportunity. He wasn't going to. Someone in the comments, by the way, write the name, because I have no idea how I'm blanking on this. But they had a chance to have an excellent veteran, seasoned defensive coach, and instead of bringing him in, he didn't play the wide nine, and he was going to turn down the Miami gig to come and be the defensive coordinator for the Niners. But because he didn't play the wide nine scheme, the 49ers passed on him. And they got Nick Sorensen because Nick Sorensen plays their style of defense. It's like, no, you need to get the best guy available. Who cares what defense you've been running? Your defense isn't good right now. Like, you should be open to someone changing it up. Anyway, so that's my feelings on Nick Sorensen. I feel like I should probably change topic a little bit because I just ranted about him for way too long. My bad. I was obviously a little bit passionate. Okay, injuries from the game. I should talk about this. I probably should have opened with this. My bad. But injuries from the game. Malik Mustafa, he had a knee injury. He had cuts and bruises on his knee, so he left the game. But hopefully nothing like actually bone or muscle. It's the off season, so hopefully he'll be able to heal for a couple weeks and then get back into training. Issac Guerendo, this is, probably one of the sadder ones because it happened right to start the game. Guerendo has really struggled. He's had hamstring injuries. He had a hamstring injury that held him out for multiple days during training camp. I know that the day I was there, Guerendo did not participate even in training camp. Going back to college, he's had a lot of hamstring issues. And then he's just not an every down back. So he was hurt after his first start because that was a lot more, I think, contact than he's used to. But Issac Guerendo, he went down with a knee/ankle, and Kyle Shanahan did say that they think that the knee injury is MCL. When I first heard that, I thought, oh shit, that really sucks. Like, I felt like that was bad news getting in the MCL injury. But I did hear the perspective that it could be an ACL. So they're actually crossing their fingers and hoping it's an MCL because that's obviously way better news. I mean, if he has an ACL, he literally won't start for most of next season. Although, I mean, it's not February. It's not like Dre Greenlaw. But it'll be a hugely tedious offseason for him if it's an ACL, and it will definitely affect next season for him. If it's an MCL, hopefully it'll be nothing too serious and they'll be able to heal in time for training camp. They're going to get an MRI, and all the players are going to be cleaning out their lockers tomorrow as well. So I'll have injury updates, and then also any player exit interview comments. We'll be talking about those as well tomorrow. So make sure to like and subscribe. But like I said, Guerendo, knee/ankle. They think it's an MCL. Then Hufanga, he left the game with a concussion. My prayers go out to Hufanga. He's a guy that I do hope that the 49ers target to try to bring back. Unfortunately, with his injury issues, that first year he got all pro, and I was like, oh, he priced himself out. Like when his rookie contract expires, the 49ers are not going to be able to keep him. But now that he's had the ACL, the wrist injury, concussions, I think he can sign a 1-year deal, kind of like Dre Greenlaw with the 49ers. So I would definitely, if I'm, John Lynch, I'm narrowing in on Hufanga, trying to get him signed for a 1-year deal next year. And then Renardo Green, who actually played really, really well today. That's the one positive takeaway from this season. The later half, once the 49ers kind of were out of it, unfortunately, that's when more rookies played, which I wish they were playing earlier, but they've looked so promising. Like Malik Mustafa has played outstanding, Renardo Green, outstanding. And then the last couple of games, Ricky Pearsall, game ball to him. So their draft class from this year looked really good. I'm hoping, this upcoming season, off season, their draft is going to look really good. But Renardo Green, he did leave the game and did not return with a groin injury. Hopefully nothing serious, and he can, like I said, rest for a couple weeks, start training for the offseason. Chris Conley, he was out there. He had an elbow injury that he didn't return from. I don't know if the 49ers are going to try to bring him back. I think they got him on off our practice squad for the vet minimum. So I think he'll just go to whatever team pays him the vet minimum. He's not going to be a huge priority for the 49ers. No, I mean, love Chris Conley. He's made a couple great catches. I'm not trying to diss him. I just mean he's not high priority. And then Colton McKivitz, that whole entire offensive line has been completely demolished. They had no Banks, no Trent, no anyone on that team, no Burford. And then Colton McKivitz at the very end, he went out with an ankle injury and he did not return. Like I said, I think the 49ers need to dedicate that number 1 pick to the offensive line. And then I think they also need to target the offensive line again in the draft. I don't think just that first round pick, but get a couple offensive linemen. 1, you struggle so much at depth in that place. And 2, you're losing Aaron Banks. I don't think they're going to pay him. Trent Williams is only getting older. He's also had to see a specialist for his ankle injury because it's not healing. So we don't know what shape he's going to come back in. I know the 49ers just gave him an extension, which is crazy because he's in his late 30s. But they need to bring guys in. Jalen Moore has done well for filling in on that offensive line, but it's definitely not good enough. And Colton McKivitz went out. So those are all that's it for the injuries from just this game. Obviously, way more from the season. But that is what I had for there. So that's my immediate takeaways. Now I do know that George Kittle spoke after some people kind of talked about him because he is in the same situation as Brock Purdy or not Brock Purdy, sorry, as Christian McCaffrey was last year, where And so is Fred Warner. So Fred Warner and George Kittle, they're two players that they still have contracts with the 49ers, but they have no more guaranteed money. And unfortunately, last year when this happened to Christian McCaffrey, he had more years on his contract, but no guaranteed money. He held out, and the 49ers immediately paid him. Like, they were scrambling. They were like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? Throw money, throw money. They gave him money immediately. And to me, that set a bad precedent, because now any player who wants to get paid before his contract is up, the 49ers are going to have to pay. And George Kittle balled the hell out. I do hope that George Kittle ends his career as a 49er. I just think when we talk about leadership and penalties and guys who kind of feel like they quit and they were like not playing till the end of the game, George Kittle is not that guy. Like, he did not have to play. Debo did not play this game. He did not have to play this. It was a meaningless game, but George Kittle was healthy enough to go, and he played. And he's just everything you want in a 49er. I think he really buys into the culture. I think he's the best. He's the only good tight end they have. Also, they need to draft a tight end, because holy shit, besides him, they've never been able to hit on a tight end too. But he's everything, I think, to the culture. I mean, Ricky Pearsall talked highly of him. Brock Purdy's talked highly of him. Any young guy that comes has talked about George Kittle's leadership. Even earlier last week, I think it was, George Kittle put his arm around Jake Moody. Not necessarily saying Jake Moody absolutely needs to get cut. And I think George Kittle also wants Jake Moody to move on. But during the game, like while it's happening, he was at least trying to instill confidence. Jake Moody, by the way, missed another fucking field goal. Get that guy off our team. I was saying, should they not fire Nick Sorensen? You know who they are going to fire? And they should literally, like, why they have not done it yet tonight. Like, it should be announced today, right now. It should be Brian Schneider, special teams coordinator. They fucking had a missed block field goal, shitty situation. Jake Moody didn't make his. Special teams errors have crushed the 49ers season. If Jake Moody makes his field goals, there's 3 games that the 49ers have lost by less points than Jake Moody field goals. Now, part of that is on the offense. Like, to me, if you're relying on field goals, you need to be scoring touchdowns. But also, you have a kicker for a reason, because sometimes you're going to need to kick field goals. And if that guy is the least reliable kicker in the NFL, you need to get rid of him. I don't care if you spent a 3rd-round draft pick on him. And, Kyle's worried that him and John Lynch are going to get, look stupid because they're cutting a guy they should never have drafted that highly anyways. I don't care. Put your team first. What's best for your team is getting a guy who can do it. I don't know if they're going to cut Jake Moody, or right away. I think they will. But I think what they'll do is bring him back for training camp, also bring in some guys to compete with him, and then let those guys take over and just kind of quietly cut him during camp. I don't think it'll be like announced before camp. But what should be announced is the coach. Brian Schneider needs to get the F out of here. Bye-bye, Brian Schneider. I don't know how I got on that, but I was mad about special teams. What's up, tribe? And then Brooke says, all coaches out the door would be fine with me. Me too. The front office and Jed York has already given the green light to Kyle Shanahan and Jed York and said that they're coming back. But I think at the very least, I don't think that they should be back for long term. I think what they need is to be on strict. They weren't on the hot seat this year. They need to be on strict hot seat this year. Like, you must make the playoffs. You cannot look. I mean, they're going against a dog shit schedule next year. Like, they should be healthier. They should have another draft that's going to be, hopefully they draft really well this year as well. Their last draft class looked impressive, and they're going to go against way worse competition. Now, they're worst in their division right now, and their division sucks. So we've seen them play teams that aren't good, the Cardinals, and look horrible. So just because they're going against bad teams doesn't mean you're guaranteed to win those games. But hopefully they're healthier. And then I would require Kyle, 1, to give up defensive control and go get a guy like Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh, to bring in a guy like that. And 2, to give up a little bit of offensive control and hire a guy to help with 4th down decision making, to help with game, gotta have it decisions. Because Kyle Shanahan, he's been known to not know the rules. He's erratic when it comes to going for it or not. I think they need a guy on offense, like an Anthony Lynn type. They used to have that a couple years ago, And if you look at the Rams and I don't think Bengals, Rams and Chiefs, those two both have additional, aside from excellent head coaches and offensive coordinators, they also have guys who are solely there to help the offensive coordinator make game time decisions. Because a lot of times you're trying to think about the next play and maybe you don't know the situation and oh shit, I should have challenged that. It wasn't actually a catch, but I didn't see it because I was looking at the next play. Like there needs to be a guy whose sole job is to focus on that. And Kyle needs to give up a little bit of control. I also think that Kyle cannot draft like John Lynch or whoever drafted Brock Purdy. I don't know who it is, whoever drafted Fred Warner, whoever drafted George Kittle, if they're still in the building, if that's not Adam Peters, which maybe it is, and that would suck for the 49ers if that's true. But Kyle cannot be drafting guys because, he watched a couple highlights. I think that Kyle needs to oversee everything, but he needs to give up a little bit of control. He needs to be a little demoted. I'm not saying you got to fire him. You can give him one more year, but a little bit of a demotion and, spreading out the power for Kyle. I think he needs some help. Took on a little bit. He looked really burnt out this year. Debo Samuel went on a podcast and said that they were depressed coming off that Super Bowl. Like, okay, well, the energy in the building is off and we need to freaking shake it up. I would consider firing Kyle and looking into a guy like Ben Johnson, but Jed York apparently isn't going to do that. So you need to take away a little bit of control. That's what I would do. Anyways, I think that's it for this game. I'm going to read maybe a couple comments. Maybe I'll talk about Jauan Jennings. Jauan Jennings was ejected from the game. I made a tweet and some people disagreed where I said, I thought that was, kind of BS on Jennings' part. I think that he was more interested in winning that, little one-on-one fight that he had than football. I got a lot of pushback, people saying he was just blocking. He didn't throw any punches. He shouldn't have been ejected. I agree. At the very end, he shoved him all the way to the ground, and maybe he should be able to do that, but he already had a penalty right before that. So he was already on, like, I think if that was his first offense, he wouldn't have had to leave the game. But it's like they just got in trouble for fighting two plays prior or 2 plays before. And then they have this ending where both teams, like, to me, you can't blame the refs because the refs took both of them out. But it's like Jauan Jennings was 20 yards away from hitting 1K. He's been outstanding. And I will say it's hard because I want you to do well from a football standard mindset, but also I'm a fan. So I love it when you're roughing up someone and when you bring energy. And one of the great things about Jauan Jennings is that he is, just like George Kittle, he wasn't mailing it in. Like a lot of players showed up today and looked like they didn't want to be there. They weren't giving it their all. Jauan Jennings was there to freaking play. And so I really respect that. And if that's who he is, you're just going to take that sometimes, it's like a Draymond Green type of thing. You're like, okay, sometimes he's going to cross the line, but over the course of the season, it's worth it. I'm so proud of Jauan Jennings for this season. I thought last season in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, he was the best wide receiver on this team. He continued to be that this year. The only difference is that he got more targets and he made the most of those targets. I'm so proud of him. I wish he would have hit that 1K. I think he has a salary bonus if he hits it. I hope the 49ers still give it to him. I know Kyle said it was on his mind to get him to that 1K. He needed 70 yards to get it going into this game. And he got a couple because he got catches earlier on, but then he was taken out, before halftime. So Jauan Jennings was out of it. He kind of said that he felt like the refs made a mistake, that he didn't throw any punches and didn't think that he broke any rules. I think that it was more, he was playing overly physical and the refs had seen that there was chippiness and biting going on and they kind of wanted to cut it out. Maybe it was ticky-tack and shouldn't have happened. I'm open to hearing that. And like I said, I accept it because I love the passion. I'd rather you have a passionate player that sometimes crosses the line. Dre Greenlaw's kind of like this, right? Like you accept that maybe every once in a while they're going to cross the line because at least they're freaking going to play. Like sometimes I want to shake, today I want to shake some people I'm like, you're watching. You're doing nothing different than I am, except for you're on the field. You have like a front row seat to just watch this game. Like you're just watching the Kyler Murray throw the ball and score a touchdown and run. You're not doing anything. And so I'd rather someone go out there who's passionate and actually going to make a play and sometimes overstep. But for Jauan Jennings' sake, I wish that he didn't overstep, because then he would have gotten that 1K. And to me, you do, although I want you to be passionate, we've also talked all year about penalties in this team. And there does need to be a standard with these veteran guys that, hey, you can't be committing penalties. I know it's a thin line and it's hard to ask to be passionate, but also don't break the rules. But like, I feel like that's fair. Teams all around the league are very passionate, but they're not overstepping, and that's how you win football games. So it's not all on Jauan Jennings. I think it's a lot just the team culture and Kyle Shanahan in general. But I'm hoping coming into this offseason and coming into next year that we see passionate players that aren't breaking the rules and giving up 85 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards. I mean, the penalties this year have crushed the 49ers, penalties and turnovers. So work on those things. Lots of changes to come. Please give me a like and subscribe. It's been a wonderful season. I really I feel so grateful. I'm grateful for everyone I stream with. I'm grateful for everyone in the comments. I think this has helped a lot just with my self-esteem and confidence in speaking. I was talking to a friend earlier, and I'm a former cheerleader, and sometimes I can like just get a really high-pitched voice. And I think that's just when I'm nervous. And when I'm speaking in my actual voice, it just means I've settled a little more. And I think when it came to public speaking, not just on here, but in general, I tend to be a little more like uppity and nervous. And this has helped so much with my confidence in my knowledge in football and my ability to kind of have actual conversations. And I learn so much from you guys in the comments. And I just really, really appreciate you guys. So I want to say thank you guys so much. I hope you're having a wonderful start to the new year. Whatever goals or aspirations you set for yourself, I hope you're sticking with it. Don't let that go. And if you haven't stuck with it, if you had a day where you took a day off and you weren't supposed to, or ate something bad, just get right back on it. Don't let it ruin your year. Like, January is all for kind of setting yourself up to have a great year. Like I said, my birthday is coming up. So if that can give you guys, if you have gotten off your goals, think about January 8th and restarting them with me then. And just celebrating being alive. I feel so blessed. I went through a little bit of a hard patch coming out of college for a couple of years there. It was pretty just hard on me mentally, and I've felt the most like myself this year. So grateful for my family, so grateful for my friends, everyone I work with, and a lot of it is this YouTube channel. And just I told myself I'm going to stream multiple days a week. If I'm good or bad, if people watch or don't, it's a passion of mine. It's a little side hobby, and I want to dedicate time to it, and I want to prove to myself that I can do it. I'm very bad with computers. I didn't know much about it, and I'm just glad that I set a goal, and I proved to myself that I could do it. Like, no one, it didn't matter to me how much it grew. It just was about, I told myself I want to do something. Can I keep that promise to myself? Because I think a way that you develop self-confidence if you've lost it is kind of like making small, easy changes. Don't make them huge and grand. I didn't say I'm going to stream every single day, no matter what. And if I miss a day like that, I would have been setting myself up to fail. But just putting myself out there was something I wanted to do because I loved this community. It's helped me so much. I love talking football with my dad. I like teaching my friends about football. I like the friends that I've made within this community. Especially like last year, there was a lot of politics going around. I love talking about politics, but it can be really depressing. And it's nice just to talk about football. Like, football doesn't really matter, but you get excited and you get riled up. And I love I loved going to the Super Bowl. And even this year that's been more disappointing, it doesn't make me like sad. It's just it's fun to watch, and it's fun to think, okay, how do they change? How do they evolve next year? So that's a little tidbit. Sorry for drowning on at the end there, but I'm just really thankful for everyone who tunes in and everyone who streams with me and my family and all that. So I wanted to say that because I think coming out of December and my birthday, I do a lot of reflecting. So thank you guys so much. Tomorrow, 49ers are cleaning out their lockers. The content's not going anywhere. We're going to be talking, Brock Purdy extension is happening. The combine's happening. Draft. They're picking high in the draft. They could trade back. They could trade up for a quarterback. They could get an offensive lineman. So we're going to have lots of content coming. make sure you like and subscribe and tune in tomorrow because we're going to get injury updates from Kyle. It's going to be one of the last times we're hearing from him for a couple weeks. So we're going to get injury updates from him and then player exit interviews. We'll talk about them all week, but if we have any updates tomorrow, I don't know if they'll all be over tomorrow because it's like 100 guys that they have to interview. But if there's any updates from that, I'll be giving you those as well and flying back as well from Arizona. It was an easy flight, but it is an hour early or hour later here. So I'm going to take off and go get some dinner. And I hope you guys have a really nice night. Drink some water. Have a good one. Thank you guys so much. And bye. Like and subscribe to